Welcome back to Sliver and Bite TV. Today we're making Char Siu. Directly translated, it means fork roasted. It is a Chinese barbecue pork. You would usually find this in your fried rice from the Chinese restaurant. It does take 24 to 48 hours to marinate and an hour and a half to cook, but it is well worth it. Let's get started. You'll need a glass bowl, a Ziploc bag, a glass bowl with a little whisk or a fork, and a spatula. Ingredients wise, you need some brown sugar, some diced garlic, some Chinese 5-spice, flake salt, and some white pepper, hoisin sauce, light and dark soy, Shaoxing rice wine, honey, and some treacle. For the cut of pork, I have a pork shoulder. It's a roast, and you can see that it's still got the rind on the outside. So I'm going to cut that away because that simply won't render enough. As you can see, I'm just pulling the rind back and then cutting in between the meat and the rind. If you do keep a little of the under rind on there, that's fine because that is quite soft and will render and melt away during the roasting process. As you can see, once I've turned it over, there's already been some incisions, which can make it a little harder to cut the perfect pieces for roasting. However, you just do the best you can. So what I'm going to do is cut in between the two little flyaways there so that we've got at least some density to the roast. Otherwise, it'll just end up being too dry. This is a nice thick piece, so I can go straight down the middle of that and still have it nice and juicy. Just poke a few holes in it with a fork. This will allow a bit of the marinade to seep into the pork whilst it's marinating for the 24 to 48 hours. Grab your glass bowl or container and a Ziploc bag that's inside of it, ready to pour in your marinade. I use glass because of the food colouring that you're going to use. It will end up staining any plastic. So if you do have plastic that you don't mind staining, go for gold. So adding in the brown sugar, diced garlic, make sure you get it all in there. Hoisin sauce. Shaoxing rice wine. The soy mix, which is a mixture of light and dark soy, and your honey and treacle. Back to the dark soy. Dark soy is a little bit thicker, and that aids the colouring of your rice. Most of the taste you're getting is the light soy, and now we're just putting in the dry mix. In some hot water. I use boiling water, and then that just gets the last little bit of honey out of it. And give it a good whisk to incorporate the honey and treacle that would have fallen to the bottom of the bowl. That's why I like to use the boiling water. It aids in making sure that everything is mixed together thoroughly. Red food colouring. It's not a necessity, however, it does give it that nice theatrical look. I use the gel food colouring from Colour Mill. It's so vibrant. And then pour it over the pork whilst it's in the bag. Make sure you're getting all of that delicious marinade out. Time to zip it up and make sure you're getting all of the air out of it. And then lay it down and move it around a bit just to make sure that every piece of the pork is covered in that marinade. Not all Ziploc bags are perfect. As you can see, there's a little bit of colouring on the bench already, so it's best to have it in a bowl and covered in the fridge so that it doesn't smell the fridge out. This is 24 hours after, and we're going to take it out and put it onto a wire rack over an oven tray lined with tin foil. I know, it looks like a heart. And it's off into the oven at 160 degrees Celsius for half an hour. Whilst that's in the oven, we're going to put the leftover marinade with a little bit of extra honey in a pot and start reducing it down. The first baste you will do, the mixture will be a little loose because we're not ready for all of the water content to be evaporated out of that marinade. It'll be too sticky and it'll start to burn on the pork. This is half an hour after being in the oven, and I've just turned the heat off just so it's not bubbling when I go to brush the marinade on, and you'll see it's still quite watery. I'm placing some water in the tray. This helps it keep moist while it's roasting, and also stops any of the drips burning. Back in the oven for another half an hour at 160. Continue to reduce down the marinade now. It can be a little thicker for the final baste. With each 5 minutes, it starts to get thicker and thicker. Time for the final baste, and you'll see how thick the marinade is now. This will be the final marinade, and it's back in the oven now for 20 minutes. You can see how thick that is, and that'll start to go quite dark on this last roast. And make sure you turn it over to baste the other side. Back in the oven for 20 minutes. You'll see that I didn't put any water in it this time, and you can see how burnt the bottom of the tray is. It's okay because it doesn't smoke, so it doesn't affect the meat at all. So bring them all close together and place some foil over the top of it for a 10-minute rest before you go to cut it. Now that it's cooled, you can transfer it to a chopping board and cut some thin slices, and you'll see that nice red ring around it, which is synonymous with your Chinese meals. And that is Char Siu. Amazing, amazing taste.